What is going on, everybody? SchwayZ here, and today we're doing the battle of the muscle cars. We're talking 2024 Ford Mustang GT versus a Dodge Challenger Scatpack. Let's get right into it. Now, before we dive into today's video, I do want to extend a huge thank you to Ken Garff, West Valley Ford, for giving me the opportunity to review this vehicle for you all today. If you guys are in the market for a new or used vehicle, so I'm sure you can see they have a large assortment of different vehicles on their lot. Make sure you reach out to them and let them know that SchwayZ sent you. Okay, so I'm sure you know why I'm comparing a 2024 Ford Mustang GT with a 2019 Dodge Challenger Scatpack, and that is because these are two of the big three American muscle cars. The only one missing here is the Chevy Camaro. They're both front engine, rear wheel drive coupes with a naturally aspirated V8 and either a manual transmission or an automatic. And I thought it would be fun to compare the brand new 2024 7th generation Ford Mustang with the outgoing Dodge Challenger, because as of the end of 2023, this is going to be the last time you're ever going to see this car unless they reintroduce it in the next generation. But so far, there's been no talk of that happening. So let's talk about these two cars. First off, let's talk styling. Now, for 2024, this is the S650 Mustang, and you have an updated and more refined styling. This looks a little bit more modern than the outgoing 6th generation. You get LED headlights, LED daytime running lights. You also have a revised front grille. Now, one of the indicators of this being a GT is this gloss black grille, and this one is a vapor blue metallic color, and I think it looks really good. You've got more aggression on the 2024 Mustang, more crisp lines, it's bolder, and at the same time, it still has a little bit of a throwback to the prior generation. You also have a heat extractor over here on the GTs, and then coming over to the side, of course, you have the 5.0 badge because that's what's going on under the hood, and we'll talk about that in just a second. And then a big revision on the 7th generation is this widened fender flare in the back. It's a little bit more crisper. You know, some people say it looks kind of like a Camaro, and I can definitely see that, but it definitely looks good with the proportions of this vehicle. Now, coming over to the back, you'll see they revised the rear end by making it look a little bit more sharper than the 6th generation version. You still have the 3 LED tail lights that swipe across when you have the turn signal on, the GT badge back there, and a small deck lid spoiler over here. Coming to the bottom, you have a rear diffuser with quad exhaust pipes, and your reverse light is located down here at the bottom. Now, in terms of length here, it's pretty much the exact same size as the prior gen. It's just about 1 inch longer. You're looking at 189.4 inches long, and the advantage to the Mustang is you can get this as a coupe or as a convertible. Okay, now coming over here to the Challenger, this is a vehicle that doesn't need an introduction because it's been out for quite a while. This current body style has been out since about 2015, but it really was just an evolution of the 2008 Challenger that came before it. So this car is coming up on arguably 15 years old, but it's still a very good looking vehicle. This is, in my opinion, more retro than the Mustang. This is a little bit more modern. This is a little bit more true to its roots. Now, coming over to the headlights, they have LED daytime running lights similar to the Mustang, but you only get halogens as standard or HIDs as upgraded. So you can't get LED headlights on the Challenger, but overall the front grille looks really good. Again, very throwback to the original 60s and 70s Challenger. You've got your fog lights down here and a front splitter. Overall, a more simple design, I would say, than what you have in the Ford Mustang with the various colors. Now, coming over to the side, this looks very similar to the late 60s Challengers and Chargers. In terms of length, you're looking at about 197.9 inches, so it's just about 8 inches longer than the Mustang over there. So not a huge difference, but it does make a difference on the inside. Now, unfortunately, you can't get a convertible from the factory in this Challenger trim level. The coupe is all you get. Now, although you can't get a convertible, you can get the Challenger with a wide body package. So that's a nice added variation that you can't get on the Mustang. And then coming over to the back, you've got these dual LED taillights, which look really good, especially when you're driving at night. And then you've only got dual exhaust back here and not as much detail to your rear splitter. But overall, a pretty good looking car and very throwback to the original muscle car days. All right, now's a good time to pause that video and hit the subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all of the weekly videos. And it really helps me out by allowing me to create more cool content like what you're seeing today. All right, now back to the video. Now, similar to how the GT has a 5.0 written on the side, the Scatpack has a little Super B logo, which is kind of the mascot for this car, and 392 written below it. Now, 392 stands for the cubic inch engine that's under the hood. And speaking of which, let's talk about what's going on underneath. Okay, so starting off underneath the hood of the Challenger, this is one of my favorite engines in the industry. It's a 6.4 liter naturally aspirated Hemi V8 that produces 485 horsepower and 475 pound-feet pound-feet of torque. This thing can do 0 to 60 in just about 4.2 seconds, assuming you can get pretty decent traction. Now, fuel economy isn't great. You're looking at 14 in the city and 23 on the highway. And of course, all of that power is sent through the rear wheels. You can't get this engine with all-wheel drive, although there is a Challenger variant called the GT that does come with all-wheel drive, but that is a 3.6 liter Pentastar, not this Hemi V8 engine. Now, in terms of transmissions, you can either get this with a Tremec 6-speed manual transmission or a ZF 8-speed automatic. Now, I know you're all muscle car enthusiasts and everybody wants a manual, but the automatic in this thing is incredibly quick. You also have paddle shifters, which I'll show off in a minute, and this thing is very easy to drive, and it's actually quicker than the manual. Now, in terms of weight, that's really what most people laugh at when it comes to the Challenger. This thing weighs about 4,300 pounds in the Scatpack trim level. Okay, now let's jump under the hood of the Mustang. A slightly different methodology, but similar power output. You're looking at a tried and true 5-liter Coyote V8. It's naturally aspirated just like the Challenger, but in this case, it's a smaller displacement. But this engine has been used in a lot of different vehicles, from pickup trucks to sports cars like this. It is one of Ford's most popular engines, similar to how the 6.4 liter is used in a lot of different vehicles within Dodge, Jeep, and Chrysler's lineup. Now, coming back to this engine, it has been slightly revised for the 2024 model year. You've got these twin intakes over here. They've modified some of the internals. And for 2024, this thing produces 480 horsepower and 415 pound-feet of torque. Now, if you get the performance exhaust, then it bumps the horsepower and torque up just a little bit. You're looking at 486 horsepower and 418 pound-feet of torque. Now, fuel economy, oddly enough, even though this is a smaller displacement, is identical between the two. You're looking at 14 in the city, 23 on the highway, and similar to the Challenger, all of that power is sent through the rear wheels. Ford does not offer an all-wheel drive type of Mustang. Now, 0 to 60 is also pretty close to the Challenger. Honestly, I think it comes down to the driver. You're looking at 4.3 to 4.5 seconds, depending on the auto or the manual. Speaking of the transmission, you can either get this with a 6-speed manual or Ford's 10-speed automatic. Now, in terms of weight here, even though people laugh at the Challenger, this really isn't that much lighter. You're looking just under 4,000 pounds. So the difference between the two is just about 3 to 350 pounds. Now, in terms of top speed, that's where the Challenger takes the cake, just because it's a larger displacement engine at 6.4 liters. You're talking 176 mile per hour top speed versus the GT's 155 miles per hour. All right, now let's take a listen to the exhaust and see which one sounds better. Now, full disclosure, this isn't a fair comparison because this one has a muffler delete, this one does not, but it's still fun to kind of hear the difference. Okay, now let's talk about some of the performance add-ons you can include on both vehicles. First off, you can get the Mustang with the Performance Pack, which adds a limited slip differential in the back. You'll also get a MagneRide suspension, which will read the road and adjust hundreds of times per second, depending on road conditions. You'll also get a strut tower brace that extends from passenger to driver's side. Of course, this one doesn't have it because it doesn't have the Performance Pack included. You'll also get wider 275 millimeter tires in the back, and you'll get something called the Drift Brake, which I showed off in the Dark Horse review, where it's technically an electronic parking brake, but it looks just like a manual handbrake. Now, you can get the Challenger with the Dynamics package, which will get you 6-piston red Brembo brakes in the front. You'll also get 20 by 9.5 wide wheels in the back with the same 275 millimeter rubber that you can get on the Mustang. Now, you won't get a MagneRide, but you do get an adaptive dampening suspension with the Dynamics package. Now, there are actually a ton more packages that you can add on the Challenger than you can on the Mustang, one of those being the wide body package I referenced earlier. If you do that, you're going to get a stiffer suspension, you're going to get a different set of brakes, wider tires on all 4 wheels, and a bunch of other performance goodies with the wide body package. All right, now let's talk about what tires come standard on the GT without the Performance Pack. These are 19-inch wheels wrapped around Continental Pro Contact tires. These are actually 255 wide, 40 sidewall R19s, and they're the same size on the rear as well. Now, this particular Challenger has modified tires, but the standard Scat Pack comes with 245 by 45 sidewall R20, so 20-inch wheels front and back, which is 1 inch larger than the Mustang. Now, in terms of warranty, they're identical. You get 3-year, 36,000 mile limited bumper-to-bumper warranty on both, and a 5-year, 60,000 mile powertrain warranty. All right, now let's jump on the interior and show you the differences between the two. Starting off with the Challenger, this is a very familiar place because it really hasn't been updated since 2015. On the door panel, you've got soft touch materials over here, but this is injection molded plastic, so it's kind of like this fake looking leather material. But down here, you do have a little bit of leather leather, which adds a nice touch, some white stitching over here, leather where you're going to rest your elbow, a little compartment over here, and then a cup holder located up front, and your door handle is down at the bottom. You do have automatic windows, lock and unlock, and automatic mirrors, of course. And one thing you'll notice is just how wide this door is. It's very hard in tight garages. Now, looking at these seats, these are the upgraded seats because the standard Scat Pack will come with cloth seats, houndstooth cloth, whereas this has the upgraded leather with Alcantara. These feel really good. These are power adjustable, which is standard on all Scat Packs. Even if you have the cloth seats, you're still going to get 8-way power adjustable seats. But heated and ventilated functionality is optional. I do like that you have this little Scat Pack logo, again, reminiscent of what's going on the outside, and it's a throwback to the early 70s. But these seats are incredibly comfortable. They're very wide, very large. You can definitely fit larger people inside of this vehicle than the Mustang. Now, climbing inside, you guys have probably seen dozens of videos of the interior of this vehicle, and it's starting to look a little bit dated compared to the Mustang, which we'll show off in just a second. Now, you can get a flat bottom steering wheel, but that is optional. The standard steering wheel is just a leather wrap steering wheel. You got some perforated leather over here. On the left-hand side is how you're going to control your 7-inch gauge cluster display, which is pretty colorful, but it is on the smaller side compared to the Mustang. You do have a cool 392 logo, but the nice thing is you've got these colorful gauges on the left and right hand side, which have some red accents to them. It goes all the way up to 180 miles per hour here. It looks really good, very muscle car-like. Now, below the controls for the gauge cluster are your phone settings and your voice activation. You just have your Dodge logo over here in the middle. On the right-hand side is your cruise control. Now, you can get adaptive cruise control. This particular vehicle does not have it, but you can't get any type of lane centering or lane keep assist. Now, blind spot monitoring is also available, but it is not a standard feature. So this particular vehicle does have it, but you have to option for that. Now, on the left-hand side of the steering wheel are your headlight controls, and you've got an old school, almost truck-like handbrake over here, emergency brake. Your pedals are lined in aluminum, which is nice. And then this is all soft touch material, but it is that same injection molded plastic that you'll find on the door panel. It's nice overall. It's nice that it's not hard touch plastic, but it is, again, starting to look a little bit more dated compared to some of the modern materials that are used. But one thing you'll notice about the interior is it's very, very old school muscle car like. I mean, the center display is kind of angled towards the driver. Even just to look at that vent, it brings back memories of an old school muscle car. And that's one of the things I love about the interior here. Now, coming over to the center here, you've got an 8.4-inch Uconnect touchscreen. Now, again, it's starting to be a little bit dated, but there's nothing wrong with it in terms of speed. It's very quick to use. Apps pull up perfectly fine. You can go to your SRT modes where you can cycle through 4 different types of drive modes: track, sport, custom, and auto. You can also go to your race options where you can do launch control, you can do line lock, you can set the RPM that you're going to launch the vehicle. There's a very robust amount of race options here. You can turn on your valet mode. It'll limit the power output to the vehicle, and your eco mode. And then your auto setup, you can go through your various settings here. So lots of race modes here so that when you get to a drag strip, you're ready to go. Now, if you want to get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, the only option is wired, and you have to option for the Uconnect 4C with navigation. So it's not a standard feature on all Scat Packs. That is an option. Now, moving down below here, you've got a lot of redundant physical buttons, which is nice for everybody who hates having touchscreen controls. So you got your climate controls down here, your defroster, your AC. Now, a benefit here is every single Scat Pack comes with dual zone climate control. And then you've got your seek and track and your volume buttons here as well. You also got quick access buttons for your launch control, your drive modes, and then you can turn the screen off or mute the audio. Now, unfortunately, your heated seat functionality is not located down here. You're going to have to access it using the climate button over here on the touchscreen, but luckily it's always at the bottom of the screen, so it's very easy to access. Moving further back, you got your 8-speed automatic transmission. Feels kind of like a fighter pilot. Got a little compartment over here, 2 cup holders, and a small little cubby over here with 2 USB ports. And then moving above you, you've got your rear view mirror, your home link system, and a sunglass holder. Now, in terms of the speaker setup, you've got a few different options. The standard one comes with just a 9-speaker setup, but if you choose this optional Harman Kardon system, you got upwards of 18 speakers inside the vehicle. Honestly, not even sure where they fit them all, but this vehicle has 18 speakers. One complaint I do have, and something that's missing inside of all Challengers, regardless of trim level, is a wireless charging pad. This vehicle was designed essentially before wireless charging pads were a big thing, and so because of that, there's not really a space for it. I think maybe over here they could have made a slot for it, but no matter which year you get, you can't get a wireless charging pad. Now, one of the biggest benefits of the Challenger and why you might want to consider this over the Mustang is the amount of rear leg room. So first of all, you actually have 5 functioning seats inside inside this vehicle. There are actually 3 seat belts located in the back, and I apologize, it's a little bit dark. It's getting a little bit dark outside, so it doesn't look as good, but you do have 2 cup holders over here, and then you've actually got 2 rear air vents located in the back of the Challenger, which is actually surprising because a vehicle this small doesn't really need rear air vents. The other benefit of having this more squared-like roof is you have a little bit more headroom in the second row. So you can ideally fit 3 people back there. It's just going to be a little bit tight. I have actually fit 2 people back there, and they were perfectly fine when I was driving around on a quick trip. I just had to move this seat a little bit more forward. Now, if you're wondering, in terms of legroom, you're looking at 33.1 inches in the back. Now, trunk space is another major advantage of the Challenger. You've got 16.2 cubic feet of space back here, and I've honestly fit a bunch of stuff back here. I've made videos about it in the past. I put camping chairs, I put a big tent, I put a table, and then if you don't get the upgraded sound system with the Harman Kardon subwoofer, you'll have even more space located underneath the trunk floor, but this is a major advantage of the Challenger. Okay, I briefly want to stop today's video and talk to you about Octane Coffee Company. If you guys are cars and coffee enthusiasts, definitely check out Octane Coffee for a variety of different roasts. Personally, I'd pick the big block 89 octane for the Dodge Challenger, and that's because it's a little bit more mellow body, but it's got that nutty flavor, perfect for cruises down the canyon or cars and coffee in the mornings. Check out all their different roasts at octanecoffeecompany.com and get 10% off your first order using promo code Octane10. Now back to the video. Okay, now let's jump inside of the Ford Mustang. So Ford said they updated a lot of interior materials for this 2024 model year, and it's instantly noticeable. Now, starting off with the door panel, this is a soft touch material, but also very similar to the injection molded plastic you found on the Challenger, just a slightly different texture to it. Coming below that, you do have, similar to the Challenger, a little bit of leather here, feels really nice. And then you've got a little bit more lighter stitching located below it. Here is what your door handle looks like. And then you've got this kind of fake looking carbon fiber trim that weaves into an audio system speaker. Now, talking about speakers, you get 6 as standard, but you can get the optional 9 speaker Bang & Olufsen sound system. So just about half of what you can get in the Challenger over there. Now, moving below that, you've got your typical window switches here, automatic windows, automatic mirror controls. You've got just a little grab handle over here, and then hard touch plastic down here. You have a smaller compartment, but you got about the same volume in the door as the Challenger. But one thing to point out is this door just seems a little bit smaller. It won't be as tight getting in and out of tight parking spots. Now, climbing inside, you got this illuminated door seal. Now, cloth seats are also standard on the GT. This one, of course, has the upgraded leather seats over here. They are power operated. They've got lumbar support. And then this particular vehicle does come with heated and ventilated seats as well, similar to the Challenger. Now, climbing inside, this is where you're going to notice the biggest difference with this 7th generation Mustang versus the prior versions. Now, starting off with the steering wheel, every single Mustang comes with a flat bottom steering wheel. Now, on the left-hand side of the steering wheel is where you have your adaptive cruise control settings, and the Mustang does have lane keep assist and lane departure warning. Now, these buttons over here are your driving modes. So with the push of a button here, you can cycle through custom, you got slippery, drag, track, and sport, and normal. So more driving modes over here and a really cool graphic. In the middle, you've got your typical Mustang pony badge, and on the right-hand side is how you're gonna control your big 12.4-inch instrument gauge cluster display. So that's one of the biggest updates here with the 2024 model year, and it is a very beautiful system. Lots of graphics here, and this is where you're gonna immediately notice the difference between this and the Challenger. Now, I will say I do kind of miss the retro gauges that the Challenger has, but this definitely looks a little bit more modern, similar to how it is on the outside. Now, there's nothing too robust here in terms of the center display, but there is a cool feature. If you click on this little pony badge over here, which I'll show off in just a second, and you hit your cluster theme, you can cycle through your normal. You've also got a sport gauge cluster, there's track, there's calm, and then there's Fox Body Mustang. So it has like green gauges, which looks kind of cool. So lots of customization there, and I'm sure over time there are going to be more software updates that you can manipulate the screen in many different ways. Now, on the left-hand side of the steering wheel, similar to the Challenger, you have your headlight controls and your brightness adjustment. And then moving above you, this is also all soft touch material up along the dash, and very similar material to what you find inside of the Challenger. And then let's talk about this screen, because that's one of the largest changes with this 2024 model year. We're talking a 13.2-inch infotainment screen with standard wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. It's got the latest sync system, and overall it's a very snappy system to use. You kind of have this dual screen setup, and it's a much larger screen than what you're going to find inside of the Challenger. Now, there are a couple cool features here that I want to point out. First off, if you go into your features button, kind of what I showed you earlier, My Mustang, this pulls up some of your performance pages like what you'd find in the Challenger. You've got your track apps where you got line lock, launch control. You've also got a rev match function here because, well, this is a 6-speed manual. You got acceleration timers, lap timers, etc. That's all stuff that you can also find in the Challenger, but you have more functionality here with the interior colors. So you can modify your interior gauge clusters to look a little bit different. You can change your primary, secondary color. There's ambient lighting here on the inside, which you'll find mostly underneath the footwell, but it is still nice that there's more adjustability inside of the Mustang than there is inside of the Challenger. You can also open up your auxiliary gauges, which will show you your G-forces, your oil temperature, all the necessary information if you take this thing to a racetrack. And then moving below, you'll notice that gone are the days of the circular vents in the Mustang. You have these horizontal vents with a little bit more of that fake carbon fiber texture. And overall, the interior really doesn't look like any prior gen Mustangs, and there's not really anything throwback about it. Maybe this section is the only one that looks a little bit more retro with some of this fake carbon fiber and the aluminum outlining this Mustang badge and the air vent. And then this is a nice leather wrap material. I would say in terms of material quality, it's very similar to the Challenger. There's not anything that's really that much better. There are some things that are a little bit better, maybe some of this leather material, but then there are other things that maybe aren't as nice because you still have this rubberized material. It's not leather wrapped. And I personally like the seats inside of the Challenger with that suede a little bit more than what's in the Mustang. So it's kind of personal preference when it comes to that. Now moving below that, you have your red engine start stop button, your quick access button for your My Mustang modes. You got your hazards, your traction control off, a favorites button, and you have a physical volume knob. Now something you guys might dislike is the fact that all of your climate control settings are on the touchscreen. So your heated and ventilated seats are activated with this button. You can adjust your fan speed and the air temperature using the touch sensitive panels. You got your heated steering wheel here. All of that is located always at the bottom of the screen, no matter what menu you're in. Now the downside of that is as you're driving, you may accidentally click on the touchscreen instead of adjusting your air controls. So that's definitely an advantage of the Challenger, but it's kind of where all vehicles are going nowadays. Speaking of climate control, dual zone climate is not standard on all Mustangs. That is an optional feature on the GT. Below this section, you'll find a optional wireless charging pad. So this vehicle, of course, does come with it, and it fits the S22 Ultra. You got 2 USB ports, a cigarette style outlet over here, and then moving further back, this is where you have your 6-speed manual transmission. Now, unfortunately, the Tremec 6-speed is reserved for the Dark Horse, but you've got your conventional 6-speed over here and some nice materials over here as well. I will say, though, this isn't a soft material, so if you're going to rest your knee over here, it's on the harder side, but it's not a big deal overall. A little bit more of that fake carbon fiber trim. You got your electronic parking brake. You've got 2 cup holders over here and a smaller center arm console with a small cigarette-style outlet. You don't have any USB ports located inside of here. Now, I will say the interior of the Mustang feels noticeably smaller. Sitting in this car, it feels more like a sports car. It feels like the vehicle is kind of wrapped around me versus in the Challenger, it feels like I'm sitting on kind of a big couch. It's a very old school muscle car feel where it's just a large vehicle, large dashboard. You're looking over a massive hood, and it kind of depends on your personal preference. If you want something that's a little bit more sportier, maybe feels like you're driving a race car, pick the Mustang. If you want something that's more like a GT car that you're going to take on a road trip and be perfectly comfortable, which I have many times in a Challenger, then pick the Challenger. It really comes down to what you want. Now, getting into the second row of the Mustang is not something I would necessarily recommend. Again, sorry for the lighting here, but you only have 2 seats in the back, and even though you have some pretty nice bolstering over here on the seats, you don't really have much legroom, as I'm sure you can see. In terms of legroom, you're looking at about 29 inches, but there's no rear air vents back here, and there's no soft touch materials over here to rest your elbows. The other disadvantage of this is more of a fastback type of roof, so you don't have as much headroom in the back as well. So I'd really only recommend putting kids back here. Okay, now let's jump into the trunk. Now, it's not a bad space overall. Your opening is definitely a little bit smaller than that in the Challenger as well, so that's something you have to take into consideration. In terms of space overall, you're looking about 13.5 cubic feet. You also have a little bit of space located back here, but it's just for a spare tire. But luckily, you can fold down the second row seats to put longer objects inside of the vehicle. All right, let's finish off this video talking about the pricing, and that's where it's somewhat similar, but also different. Now, starting off with the Mustang, the GT starts at $42,495. But if you choose the performance pack, if you choose the more premium features, or if you choose the Dark Horse trim level, which I recently reviewed, and I'll link up on the screen right now, you can get this over $74,000. So it's not a cheap vehicle by any means, but the entry level point is a little bit lower than that of the Challenger. The Challenger Scatpack, as of 2023, starts at $49,265. So about $6,500 more than what you'd find in the Mustang. But But if you choose the wide body, if you choose the additional performance features, if you choose the more premium interior amenities, then you can easily get this over $70,000 as well. So on the top end, these two are very similar. On the bottom end, this thing is a little bit more expensive, but you do have a little bit more space on the inside. Full disclosure, the Challenger as of 2023 has quite a few different trims that are a little bit confusing. I mean, you can get the TA package, you can get the 1320 package, you can get the shaker hood, but because of that confusion, you can customize the Challenger to be a little bit more unique than the Mustang. There's not as many different variation options as it stands today on the 2024 Mustang, so you might have a few people that have a vehicle very similar to yours, whereas with the Scatpack, although there's dozens out there, a lot of them have specific trims and packages that very few other people have. Okay, to finish off this video as it's getting pitch black outside, which of these two would I recommend? Well, it really depends on personal preference. The Dodge Challenger, it is a little bit more dated, but it still has a soft spot in my heart. Of course, to be completely honest, I own a Dodge Challenger Hellcat, but that said, this thing does offer more torque than the Mustang. This is also a little bit more true to being a muscle car. It looks more like a muscle car, it feels more like a muscle car on the inside, and its power delivery is more like a muscle car. It's also a little bit larger on the inside, so you could possibly fit 4 adults inside if you really need to. This, on the other hand, is more modern. This is more of a sports car to me. It's very impressive with what Ford has done with this vehicle. I mean, the fact that you can get almost similar horsepower as a 6.4 liter out of a 5-liter V8 is truly an impressive feat. Also, you have a lot more updated technology in the Mustang. It's got all the latest tech with that large 13.2-inch touchscreen, that wireless charging pad, the 12.4-inch gauge cluster that's customizable. So this is definitely more of the tech-heavy, but I would say a little bit less retro. It's also a little bit smaller, but both of these vehicles are incredibly impressive. What a time to be alive where you have such amazing V8 engines at relatively affordable prices. Now, unfortunately, as of 2023, this is the last year of the Scatpack, and we don't really know what's coming next at the time of filming this video. Also, the Camaro has been canceled, and to our knowledge, it's not going to be coming back as a gas-powered vehicle. So if we have to ride off into the sunset with the Mustang GT, well, I am happy that it still exists. It's got a naturally aspirated V8, a great sounding exhaust, and it's a really good looking car. So what are your thoughts on the Dodge Challenger Scatpack and the Ford Mustang GT? Which of these two would you take and why? Let me know down in the comments below. Also, if you guys enjoyed today's video, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for all of the weekly car videos. Also, check me out on all the social media at SchwayZ_. Until next time, everybody, I hope you stay SchwayZ, stay healthy, have a wonderful day.